thought I just share a little bit about how I kind of ended up working at a company that didn't exist when I graduated school. I graduated UW in 2003. I'd gone to school thinking for sure I was going to be a journalist, and then I caught the political bug working with some friends at the student newspaper and moved out here in 2003. And I moved out here, I didn't have a job, I didn't have an apartment. A friend and I just, one day, everyone told us that if you wanted a job in DC, you had to be here. And we got in the car and we drove out here. And I had already had some people who had sent my resume to the National Party. And I ended up doing an interview with them and getting a job as a communications assistant. And as I was coming in, as luck would have it, as I was coming in, the team that was doing the party's website had just left to go to the president's re-election campaign. So me, being a bright-eyed college student, decided to write a big long memo of all the stuff I thought we should be doing online. And my boss is like, congratulations, this is now all yours. And that's sort of how I got involved in digital politics. After my stint at the RNC, I stayed there through the president's re-election campaign, and for most of 2005, I wanted to get more experience from the press side of things and get on the record experience. And so came and worked here very briefly on the Hill and worked very briefly on a congressional race in 2006 for about 6 months, wanting to get the experience of what it was like doing other aspects of a campaign, even though I knew I never really wanted to be a political director or be a finance director. I knew that knowing all of that would come in handy doing digital work. Through some people I knew at the RNC, they went up to go work on the mayor's race, and I ended up going up to New York for a year and running all the digital for Mayor Giuliani's campaign, which was it was one of the hardest things I've ever done, but one of the things I learned the most from, because they weren't all that bought into digital at first. And so we learned a lot more I think I learned a lot more from the failures of what we failed to do at the beginning of the campaign and throughout the entire race than you necessarily always do from winning. After that, almost every job that I've had sort of throughout my entire career is one that hasn't existed before. It's really been being able to kind of create these positions and make them into whatever it is that you want them to be. After the mayor's race, I went to DCI Group, which is a public affairs firm here, started their digital shop, went to the Republican Senatorial Committee, where we created a new position called a Chief Digital Strategist back in 2010. And then it was after 2010 that, through my relationships and knowing people at Facebook, that they reached out to me and asked me, they knew they wanted to get more Republicans on staff gearing up for the 2012 election. And so through November of last year, I was focused solely on working with Republicans here on the Hill, the Mitt Romney campaign, all of the GOP presidential primary campaigns during the primary election. And as we were, about this time last year, I was really starting to think, what is it that I want to do next? Do I want to stay in Republican Party politics and maybe do digital for the National Party? Or I looked at my resume and where the holes were, and I realized that I wanted to get back into learning how to manage people, but also get international experience. And so I knew that we had been getting a lot of requests from our colleagues overseas in other countries around building similar election programs for when the elections were in their countries. So I wrote up a plan for my bosses and presented it to them and said, here's the need I see that I think we need. Here's how I think I can fill it, and here's how I think it'll help me grow at this company and just further improve my career. And while it took 4 or 5 months of us working back and forth, and the job evolved and changed over time of having the discussions, somewhat to my amazement in May, they said, we love your plan. We're putting 2 people underneath you. We're going to give you more headcount. Time to start traveling internationally and working with all of your in-country colleagues to kind of start training those members of Parliament or Congress, the candidates, on how to best use our platform. And so this year I've gotten to go to Australia, India, Brazil, Germany. Next week I'll be in Europe all week doing a lot of work in Canada. to really start to help build up these programs. And the biggest thing I would say, just as you're looking for your own careers and what you're doing, the couple biggest things I would just advise you on is, one, don't think that a company that you might work for 5-10 years down the road might not exist yet. And so it's better off looking more at what your strengths are, where you need improvement on skill sets, to help make sure that you can be adaptable. The second is, don't be afraid to ask for the job you want or to try to create it. You're gonna enjoy it a lot more, and the worst thing is people will say no, but you never know if you won't ask. And I don't think Facebook would not have come up with this job on their own and asked me to do it if I hadn't necessarily taken that initiative. And so just when you're thinking through, those would just be the biggest things that I would recommend, that you think through when you're looking at your own career path. And I'm happy to answer any additional questions as well. But for me, it's just, I find every time I get to create a job and really kind of blaze my own path, that for me, that's been where I've had the most enjoyment and really gotten the most out of my jobs and my careers.